You were like a hair away from getting SNL.
As far as I know. So it's
What?
it's
How does? I'm like, I think everyone and their mother's intrigued by the process. And we're so fucking back. It's the You're an Idiot podcast. I'm Alex Dragovich. Joined with me today, I think the first guy that can match my height that we've had on the pod. Connor, is that true?
I believe so.
pull up the Excel spreadsheet with the heights of all the guests, Connor, if you would.
Yeah, can you pull up all of the everyone? I don't know. Maddie Weiner was pretty short.
Maddie Weiner, I thought 6'8".
Yeah. Oh, actually,
Weiner.
yeah, she might have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, you're 6'7". I think you got an inch on me.
So what's your exact height? So my last measurement, exact height, 6'6" ¾ with no shoes on.
6'6.5", no shoes on.
Damn.
You got it on me,
We've
dude.
been
And I know
eclipsed.
we talked about this on Stavi's pod. It's a damn shame you didn't play college ball. And I want to get into that in a second. I'm not going to roast you too hard, obviously.
It's a damn shame I was too lazy. But yeah.
You are late to the pod, JP, and
Indeed.
I'm not coming at you. You stated that you wanted to talk about it. What? Why the fuck are you so late, dude?
I believe in starting podcasts with openness and honesty, and and hopefully I can earn your trust back.
Sure.
It
of
was
course.
so I've like
By the way, were you eating wings earlier?
Oh fuck! I was.
Is that?
And then,
I'm not crazy, right?
No, you're not. I knew that would be the other thing that's going to compound errors on this pod. Hilarious. I'm just going to embrace being an absolute mess right now.
So-
not doing anything right.
So
today.
that was part of your preface here.
Surprisingly unrelated, but I was not in the
Okay.
middle of eating wings.
All right.
It gets even dumber, and it's just
Great.
so lame. I was I haven't spaced like this on an appointment in a long time.
Sure.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah, no worries.
But I received your text that said you were running late, and I was like, oh yeah, me too. Totally. And I had just started a load of laundry at the
Oof.
laundromat. I had just put in
yeah.
my clothes.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
And I had a whole conversation with the lady who worked there via Google Translate, trying to figure out next steps.
Yeah. Oh,
I was
Jesus.
like, where do we go from here?
Like being like, can she take care of the rest? Or
Can they switch this to wash and fold? And
Yeah.
She's like, no.
yeah, what is wash and fold in Spanish? Was it Chinese?
It was Spanish.
Mandarin? Is that the way to do it?
Connor? What's Cantonese for wash and fold? Just so we
Oh,
know.
it's Cantonese?
No, it was Mexican. Mexican Spanish.
Okay.
It was Mexican.
Yeah.
I had just put my clothes in, and I was like, "Fuck, what would you?" And I was like, "What happens if I leave my clothes here?" She's like, "Nothing."
No,
right.
you're gonna be fine. But yeah, then you're a little rushed. It happens.
Jumped in a car.
But yeah, you do have a you do kind of look like a 6-year-old right now.
Thank you.
You
Yeah.
just had like Chef Boyardee.
I ran straight from a birthday party.
I could see
Right.
it. Were you eating wings earlier?
I-
Yeah, 100%.
I had a wings lunch, and I didn't do anything by the corners of my mouth before I was on camera.
Are you at all, Connor? How does he look on the camera? Can you see it, or is
it's
it
not
just?
too noticeable? But you want me to bring you a paper towel? Would that be helpful?
No, I'm just gonna let it rock, man. Thank you. This is my punishment. If you could bring a bandana that I could cover my face with or something, I think I'd appreciate that.
Okay, well we got that out of the way. That's not bad.
The name of the podcast is "You're an Idiot." I didn't
Yes.
come here to be smart.
Mm-mm.
I didn't come here to do things right.
No, sir. Yeah, dude, that's a yeah. I mean, yeah, you don't have to. Also, when you wipe your mouth, sometimes I feel like a wings thing. You need a shower.
Yes,
After
you need
wings.
a full bathing experience.
Like a wings is like that's a whole. When people have wings before they go out, or like before, or like they're like
Psychotic.
7 o'clock, watch the game. We'll have wings and we'll go out. And it's like, if I'm having wings, I'm going home.
No, wings are a night ender. They're like shots. You can't be going and doing other things.
You can't. Yeah. Wings they're the night. That's the plan.
And it's much like alcoholism, because if you're eating wings alone, sign of a problem.
Wow.
which I was doing.
Yeah, dude, you're having wings alone on a Tuesday.
I'm supposed to be. You're supposed to be a social winger, man. You can't be doing that in your dark living room.
Yeah, wings really are only. It has to be like 3 or 4 people plus.
Yeah.
If you sit across from just one person and have wings, still weird for some reason.
Yeah.
Why is that so weird?
Split a basket.
Yeah, it's got to be. Wings are. It's got to be. It's a communal thing.
Because it taps into the tribal tendency of like, okay, we just killed this animal. Now we all eat it together. We're going to tear its flesh from the bones.
Yes, and we do it for like when we're watching the Knicks.
Yes.
You know, that's kind of that is kind of the new thing.
As ancient man once did.
I got to ask, man, how many wings you put down?
It was a small. It was like from the grocery store. It was like a 6 or 8 piece. It was nothing.
So you didn't even go for like the good stuff. You didn't even get like, oh, I'm hankering for like my favorite wing spot in Brooklyn.
No, I didn't even ball out. I supplemented it with knishes.
Knishes?
Underrated potato.
Oh,
side.
Yeah.
I think it's like having a big soft fry.
Wow.
Had a couple knishes with
probably your only win of the day so far.
Yeah, that's the only thing limiting the damage so far.
On the bright side, had a pretty fire knish. Yeah, I also think though, I think grocery store bought wings is also a bit. Are you okay?
Signs are pointing to no. I felt like I was all right, but really, if you examine my behavior,
it
was like in that little section. It's a nice grocery store. It's like that section where there's like the prepackaged meals and things like that. It's fucking gotta have my wings.
I just at my new spot I moved to in Ridgewood. I found out. Shout out Tim Smith, great comic. He told me about
the gray bastard.
Yeah, the gray bastard. He told me about this it's a new City Fresh that's like 2 blocks from me. And I didn't know about it. And it's massive and it's like brand new.
Hell yeah.
There's like, it's so new that there's like 50 people working there right now. You know
they haven't cut any corners yet.
Right. Yeah. Everything like no one's getting food poisoning. Yeah. No. It's like that's the
sushi's only a couple hours old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be great, dude. But I'm really glad you're on the pod. We've got a lot to get into.
Glad to be on the pod, brother.
Before we fucking get into you, your life, your story, why didn't you play college ball? What happened? Why were you actually lazy?
It is a good question. Part of it is me being lazy.
And we talked about this last week when I was on your pod that you do with Stavros was like that Connecticut is not, he's a Connecticut boy. It's not super basketball heavy.
I can't blame Connecticut, but I will see that it is not a mecca of basketball. I think of the guys that I played against.
Right.
They went to like maybe some mid majors. Like the best guys I played against, like in our conference, one went to like San Diego State or something like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
And like some guys played like low D1, and that was it.
Like Chicago, the situation is very much like an iron sharpens iron. You're playing with some great guys. Connecticut,
it's graphite sharpens graphite in Connecticut.
Marble sharpens marble. Graphite sharpens graphite. No, it is. Yeah, it's just a different. People aren't quite. Maybe some people are interested. Shout out a guy I played with in college was Tim Abramitis. He was fucking great, dude.
He was sick.
He was so good.
I remember his name from like there was a weird website where you would look up the stats of like the best players in Connecticut or something. Some odd niche website that some autistic guy was keeping stats on. Yeah, who was good, and then like he was, I think, the leading scorer in the state, if I'm not mistaken.
Not only was he like just awesome, great guy, and always dated the baddest fucking bitches in college. Dude. It was outrageous. And like his wife now, like he met his wife playing overseas in Spain. What do you think she looks like?
Probably an 11 out of.
That's true.
Once out of 10, probably, as they say over there.
No, dude. Yeah, he's the king. But and then so you went to Wake Forest. You tried to walk on.
I did. So I didn't get decent at basketball until it was too late.
I love doing like a basketball career arc on someone that maybe
didn't make it at all anywhere.
It's like so. Then after
career
high school,
retrospective, you have the shot of me sitting down on the couch like MJ, like. All right, let's get into it. Just doing a full career retrospective. I do want to do
like a last dance on your career.
A last dance on a guy who scored a total of 5 points in high school. That was my stat line, dude.
That is true. Yeah. Wait, so you were kind of a role player, I guess a bench guy in high school. At 6'7".
So, but I didn't become tall. I freshman year was 5'11".
Yes.
I was a late bloomer. I grew gradually all through high school, super skinny the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like 5'11", 6'1", 6'4", then 6'7"
Mm.
at the end. And like super, super skinny. I was okay, but like I just wasn't a good enough athlete, wasn't a strong enough athlete to like play the positions I needed to play.
Yes.
So I was just stuck at the end of the bench. We had two like big guys who were stronger than me who could play it in the paint. You know, if it could play facing the basket, I might have done all right. But
right. If you
know,
because if you're 5'11" growing up, in theory you maybe should have had some guard skills.
I should have, but I knew I was going to be tall because my dad's 6'6", my mom's 5'11". I knew at some point I was going to be tall.
You were waiting for the spurt.
And all my coaches knew that, and they were like, you're just going to play down low.
Oh.
So it was like, and then I like became a much better athlete, like went to college and stuff, and I like got in much better shape.
Yeah.
Started like, I ate better, I think, whatever reason. I don't know. I just got in much better shape. Dining hall, you know, I was a responsible boy. And then I tried to walk on freshman year. I think I got fairly close. I don't know. I was one of the better players.
Okay, so this is the difference in our trajectories.
Yeah.
I was a point guard my whole life.
Yeah.
And I was tall.
Like Dwight Howard.
Yeah, so I was essentially I was a 5'11" point guard in 8th grade.
Damn.
And then I grew to 6'4", then freshman year, then 6'6" sophomore year. And then you know what, guys? 7 points per game in the old Big East. That's what it comes down to. This Last Dance is the most disappointing.
But at least your 7 points per game in the Big East translates to like 20 a game in the Patriot League.
Sure.
In the CAA, something like that. If you know.
Yeah, if we can do what's the math term for that?
The conversion.
The
like
conversion.
Your credits transfer.
Yeah.
You're measuring in kilograms or something.
If I go to Vermont, play with those white boys.
Play with the Catamounts? You would have been a great Catamount.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, folks. But yeah, dude, it's fucking. I can't believe we didn't have you on even like a couple of years ago. But it's good to have you in, and we got a lot of fucking questions because, I heard this story, dude. I've been wanting to get into this. I was gonna ask you at Sesh, couple weeks ago, I think. I think I saw this on like Brendan's pod. You were like a hair away from getting SNL,
as far as I know. So it's
what I think everyone and their mother's intrigued by the process.
It's a super intriguing process. And I remember when I was going through, I was like listening to every podcast I could find about like everyone who was either a cast member or like audition, whatever. Let's do the timeline of your first, when you get the call, the email. Did your rep say anything to you? So there's the complicating factor in this is the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. This all takes place in 2020. So there was no live element to this. Normally the way the process works is like you send in a tape. They say, hey, we want to see you on a showcase at either a comedy club or like a UCB type place. And then if you do well on that, then they bring you into 30 Rock to screen test on home plate. But that obviously wasn't going to happen because the world was shut down, but they were still auditioning people. And I think it was the year ultimately they went with like Andrew Dismukes, Punky Johnson, and one other person. But it was like, I sent in a tape as I had in previous years.
And again, was this? Was this your rep that like told you like, hey, or do they just reach out to you after like cold? Like, how do they even reach out?
It was through my manager at the time, and he was just like,
he's like, here you go, you piece of shit. He's like, you're not getting this.
I'm trying to book some of my other clients on shows on the Sci-Fi Channel. Stop bothering me with your bullshit. But it was like. The way it normally starts is like the reps email their clients and they're like, hey, it's time for SNL audition tapes. Yeah. Send in a 5-6 minute tape, whatever.
Right.
And I've done that. I had done that in years past and didn't hear anything.
Yeah. And I do, again, I am like, I don't know who this manager's, but I am shitting on this like manager of past, just being like,
he's a great guy.
This guy hasn't given you any road work in 3 years or whatever, and then all of a sudden he's just like, "Oh, hey JP, like SNL, like the second SNL likes you, your manager likes you." I'm imagining that's kind of how it goes.
Not even, and first of all, like I could see that happening with a lot of people. My manager was kind of the man already. He was super nice and great. He was riding with me from the like whatever stupid little project I was working on. He was all about it. So
dope.
We're not together anymore, but he was a cool guy. And but the crazy thing about that is that specific thing. When I was like at the final stage, like when I was in that would-be screen test, third round, whatever, I got hit up by an agent. Like he had caught wind that like I was, and he told me straight up, because he was like a live agent. He was like, "Listen, I'm not going to sign you if you don't get it. Like I will only sign you if you get it."
What a loser!
But I kind of get it though, because they can't really do anything for you if you're not a draw.
Yeah, he just at some big agency, and
he was at a huge agency, and it was just like, all right, if you get it, I'm gonna get you set up on the road in the summers, and you're great. So it's like I'm just counting all this money in my head that hasn't even in my account.
Okay. So let's go. All right. So let's go back to the initial test. Then.
Yeah.
Are you sending in a stand-up clip?
No, I sent in a tape that I'd made of like characters and impressions.
Because I know Longfellow got it from like his like don't tell.
Interesting.
Like they like watched his don't tell, and they were like, oh, like you come in and test.
He's like, what's up? You're gonna want to hear a little bit more from me. And he just smoldered so much in his don't tell that they were like, we got to get this.
Is
this dark boy.
I know. Okay, so
he's the man. That guy's funny as shit.
So you work on. So you obviously you do impressions. So you did a few impressions and a couple other characters.
Yeah, I think I tried to do like a mix of impressions. I feel like 3 impressions, 3 original characters. I don't remember how I had it set up initially, but then a couple weeks go by, and my manager is like, "Hey, so and so at SNL says you're through to the next round. They want another tape." Because this was a unique case. Like normally that would be your showcase, whatever, you do it live. But they're like, just make a whole new tape, whatever.
Oh, shit.
New 5-6 minutes. And I was like, all right. So I treated it like I was going to be on stage. So I didn't want to like edit together something. I just like set up a camera in Alex Pavone's apartment because I was watching his birds. And I had a lot going on at the time. And
damn. How long are you so these are brand new characters you're making up that week then?
I think so.
And what's the turnaround time they want on this tape?
It was pretty tight if I recall. I think it was like a couple of days. It was like within a week, I'm pretty sure.
Because most people, you know, most like I don't think people have their SNL their second round submission ready to go like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
I think some people are. I think if you're like out of the UCB system or something, or if you have an improv background, you've kind of had that in the back of your mind where like these are going to be my characters. But
yeah,
I did have the benefit of like a couple of things from my stand-up act that are like kind of impressions or kind of characters. So I was like, all right, I'll just work those in somehow.
Okay, so then you send your tape from Pavone's apartment.
Yeah.
Do you remember those characters at all?
Kind of. I remember I did like a speed round of impressions, and it was like I think I did like Bob Dylan. I mentioned that on Brennan's pod, and like I did a Catholic priest character for my act, and I did like Ian McKellen or something.
Because you had gone viral from doing some of the shtick or treat stuff like that. Like you done a Sebastian, you had done
Anthony Jeselnik.
And dude, I've seen the Jeselnik. I remember seeing that like from like I think before the pandemic maybe.
Yeah, that was like 2016, 2017. But I did Filthy Brian Regan, which was never filmed.
Oh.
I did Bernie Mac Sanders.
Oh my God. I think I've seen that too.
Yeah, it's all so stupid.
So then you send the second one in, and then your manager's like, holy shit.
Actually, so what I did was I shot it all in one go because I was trying to treat it like this is my screen test.
Yeah.
I wanted to do one uninterrupted thing, 6 minutes, as if I'm on home plate at Studio 8H, whatever.
Yeah.
I send in one tape to my manager. He's like, this is pretty good. It's not all the way there.
Oh.
And he's like, give it another shot. And I was like, really? I just felt so good to be done.
Yeah.
And then he was like, one more. And
Ooh.
like in the next day or even later that night, I think I shot another one.
Yeah.
And he called me back after I sent it in. He was like just clapping. He was fired up.
No way. Okay, dope.
So I think that helped. But then, I mean, it's so funny that we started this podcast with like talking about the last dance of my no basketball career.
Yeah.
And it continues with like the documentary about my non-SNL career. Folks, if you're trying to learn
something
how
else
to
you
not
didn't
get
yeah.
another dream that went nowhere. But it was so exciting. It was a pretty cool thing, even to just get to the point where I could get a no.
Of course. Yeah.
I sent in that second tape, and my manager was like, he had been in touch with the SNL person. And they were like, all right, so you don't need to send in another tape for the third. He like let me know a couple weeks later, you're through to the third round. But he's like, you don't need to send another tape. They're just going to use the same tape that you have, and they're going to show it to the top brass, I guess. Like, the Lorne Michaelses of the world.
How certain are you that Lorne and all of them saw your tape? Do you?
Almost 100%, because I worked with, earlier this year, I worked with Anna Dresden on the Golden Globes. And we had kind of known each other like from New York, and she was a friend, and she is a former head writer. I think she was head writer at SNL at the time. So she would have been in one of those meetings. And I think I remember messaging her about something else. And she's like, oh, by the way, I watched your SNL tape. It was really funny. It was so good job. But this was like months after I didn't get it. But so I'm pretty sure Lorne Michaels, I picture him like somewhere in the Hamptons, like watching on an iPad, just like, nope. And that was that.
So then is the rejection just kind of like, hey, we're gonna, or is it then through your manager then?
Through my manager. You ever see Hard Knocks where they're like cutting guys at camp?
Yes.
And they say, hey, we're gonna let you go, like before they even get in the door of the room.
Yes.
That's kind of how my manager did it. He calls me, he's like, it's a no, but good job, whatever.
Yeah, because I imagine too. So because I imagine. You've probably, I imagine, because this is what I was going to get to too. You've also submitted for other like writing stuff.
Yeah.
Did you also like, hey, were you also like, hey, can I pitch a packet? Can I do something? Or they, was there a way to maneuver that, or was that just kind of?
I thought I would have a better shot of making it as a writer than as a cast member. And I didn't really, I don't know if I followed up. I probably mentioned it, like, well, can I submit as a writer or something?
Yeah.
In fact, I think I had submitted a packet that same year and I didn't hear anything about it. So I was surprised to hear that. Like,
so many people, I know we're getting pretty inside baseball here, but I do think it's interesting. It's there's like a week every year where it feels like every single person we know submits an SNL packet.
Oh yeah.
So they're seeing, how many of those are they actually reading?
It's crazy because it's like, I mean, everyone who's submitting is putting probably 12 hours of work into that packet minimum.
Sure.
Because it's a minimum of 3 sketches, maximum of 5.
Yeah.
And it's like all script format. And I remember just how long it took to just grind those out. But they must get hundreds upon hundreds. And
of like really fucking good ones too.
I'm sure there's a lot of filler, but there's, they get, I mean, think how many agencies there are, how many managers there are, how many clients all of them have, and how many of them are interested in that kind of thing. It's got to be, hundreds. I couldn't calculate it.
Everyone's pushing it, and then they only pick like 3, or whatever each year.
If that.
God, that is so. Yeah, I mean that stuff is. Yeah, I feel like the pandemic time for a lot of that stuff, the way that people were getting hired, it's so interesting too. Do you remember during that time where people were just people were posting on Instagram 5-page long things like we all have to think about, like what we're doing, like the world, this, like
I've been in my room for 18 months and I think I've solved racism. Here's my treatise that I'm going to post in the form of an Instagram square.
And then their next post is like, it would just be like, hey, I got this TBS show. Like, I'm so.
Yeah, it was such a brain melting period where like, and by the way, the whole time that this is happening, I am literally doing nothing. I've lost my job at the beginning of the pandemic because the production shut down. And I was just wandering around. I was like literally feeding my friends birds while they were away in a house somewhere. And I was just kind of strolling around Astoria, just taking like long, wistful old man walks to the park and just like looking at the sunset. That was my whole day. And I'm just thinking like, maybe my dreams will come true. Maybe I'll get that magical phone call that turns it all around. And I had nothing else to do but kind of desperately hope.
Because you were working on a show with Nikki, right?
Yeah.
I was going to get to that in a little bit, but so then production, that was a serious show, right?
No, that was a comedy show that never saw air. It was going to be on E. It was going to be like a talk show, like a
dope
comedy talk show.
So then that, because I feel like from other corporate environments, like you get some kind of like severance or whatever, but with in the industry, there's just kind of like, hey, we're done.
They did what they could. They did a good job, like the production company, where we had shut down, obviously when the world shut down basically and everyone went home, but they kind of kept paying us for another, I don't know, month or two or so.
That's not bad.
Just keeping us going. And we were all just delusionally. It was that period of time where we were like, maybe the pandemic will be over in 2 weeks and we'll all go back to work. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That was fun.
So you're like on Zooms with like Nikki, and she's just like, yeah, we might start it back up again.
Yeah.
So like,
no one knew what the fuck was going to be happening.
oh my God, dude.
And then they're like, no, we're shutting it down.
And then did you get on what was it? Everyone was getting like checks every week or something like that, or 2 weeks. Were you also part of the?
No, I didn't even. I didn't even file for unemployment because like my recent employment history wouldn't have gotten me anything because I had like worked a couple of little jobs. I was working some other stupid shitty job for literally 3 weeks before Nikki gave me that job.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was just like it wouldn't have amounted to anything. Like I couldn't have even filed for unemployment.
I remember there was a comic in Chicago. I don't know if he would want this story out there or not, but he was collecting unemployment like a lot of people, where it was like you were getting like $1,200 on top of your unemployment checks for like. Do you know?
Well, there was like the $1,200 check or something for like the stimulus.
Yes,
that was like a one time.
But there were other people. I know this because this was like I have four or five of my friends were doing this. It was like they were getting like fat checks every.
Oh, so they
2
like
weeks.
Started S corps and they were like getting PPP loans or something.
Yeah,
for shutting
it
down
was like
businesses.
it was the on top of
allegedly.
Yes,
I don't know.
it was on top of the normal unemployment. I have a couple friends who were getting like maybe $1,500, $2,000 every 2 weeks, like something crazy,
Finessing the system.
Yeah, like
beautifully.
and this guy and I know there was other folks like this who were. It was something on top of the normal unemployment, and so this comic he started. There was maybe a few weeks in August where things opened up a little in Chicago, and he did an outdoor show where like 200 people came because everyone was like kind of starved for entertainment.
Yeah.
Did this big outdoor show. I think he paid himself out like $1,000 from it, for like producing it or whatever. And
all the comics got $10.
Yeah, all the yeah, he just fucked over everyone else. But yeah, he paid himself out and the government saw it and just cut him like that week.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah,
fast.
They're like, oh, you clearly have a job. He's like, no, I just like did a comedy show.
No, trust me, I'm very unsuccessful as a comic. Please continue to give me money.
Yeah, it was like it's one of those things where you're just like, yeah, I just remember being like, damn, like that was, yeah, most people, everything was kind of under the table around that time. It is kind of, yeah, thinking back on that, the way people were. Connor, did you have a job during that time?
No, I was, I was working in a video equipment rental house here, shut down, and I was just on my own.
Yeah. Jesus. And before this, but like now that we're on the jobs, you were in finance before you got into before you were doing stand up?
Yeah, like as I started stand up, I was working for, you could call it finance, but I was working for Bank of America, like in the operations side. So like a banking job that doesn't even make money. So I was there for like 5 years or so.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'd moved to the city for that job and I was here for like a full year before I started stand up.
That'll keep you going, but like having
nice.
like you know, the decent paycheck for while you're doing like shit around the city. That must be. I feel like that's because if you're not touring and you can keep the job a little bit, like the data, that must have been nice. Right?
It was nice, and I was just doing open mics at the time, and it's also like an interesting glimpse into like the changing eras of New York. It was like this weird blast from the past job. Like I got this job, I was all excited. My friends from college all had way better jobs before we even graduated.
IB and private equity and
exactly,
shit like that.
Yeah, and you know, whatever high finance type stuff, they're all making at least 80 grand as soon
out
as
the
we
door.
graduated from college.
Yeah.
And then bonuses. And I was just like scraping together. But I was psyched to have this job. And like I go into this office on my first day and they like open the door and it's like this big floor. It just looks like you went to the 1980s where it's these rows of desks, like these white walls, gray carpet. And it's like people who have been working in this weird niche section of the bank for like 30 years.
There's just like a puff of cigarette smoke just everywhere.
Yeah. Everyone's like typing on word processors, like
it's like the legit it's like the worst version of Wolf of Wall Street, where everyone's making 65K.
if they were all broke.
They all think they're sharks, but they're really just like barely getting by.
But it was literally a department of the bank that was on its way out. Like at a certain point, they told us like, hey, we're going to be shutting down this site in the next 2 years. We're like sunsetting
did it get fully automated in a way?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was going to say it was going to be replaced by AI. You wouldn't even need AI to replace this job. You could just have like a somewhat advanced computer program. But it was like it was regulatory stuff.
Yeah, it's just going to be done by one like software nerd. Like the whole branch just got siphoned down to one.
Yeah, like 100 people
graduate.
Were replaced with an app. It's like not even difficult. But it was nice because I could just kind of mail it in. I mean, I would show up. I even got promoted within it. It was like so easy. And I would just like,
dude, there are some jobs. I think about this now a lot, because now it's like a lot of remote gigs, and like I think with AI, like everyone is kind of, companies can really track what you're doing in a pretty intense way. There are people who have entire careers where for 50 years they just like really weaseled by and were like the personality hire.
So many people were working in jobs in America where it was like they were working for the Italian government. They were just like had some some no-show job where they did nothing. For decades.
And once you're at the company long enough, your yearly review just becomes like okay, we like you.
Yeah, you're one of the boys.
Great, yeah, like thanks for being here. But now the way that everything is so big brothery, it's kind of, I don't think a personality hire can really skate by anymore.
The dream was being one of those personality hires in like the 80s or the 70s. My dad also worked in banking for a long time, but like back when it was like the boys. It was like you work at the same company for like 30 years, and it's now like they all went to like city colleges that cost $45 and a pack of cigarettes to go to, and they all owned their houses, and they were just like, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't work hard, but it was like they could just get, now you need to have an MBA minimum to have any kind of successful job.
To be white back then.
Oh, mwah. God. White in the Reagan era? Are you kidding me?
White in the Reagan era would have been something else.
Roman emperors didn't have it as good as like middle management
in like 1984.
Oh, the dream.
Dude, I always, you're someone that like doesn't really have, like, you're one of the few guys that has this kind of, maybe you, me, maybe like Zelnick. Not many guys have like this like the backgrounds of like going to like a Wake Forest. I went to Notre Dame, BC. Most comics that we know like have this kind of they kind of already would have been at the bar drunk anyway.
Yeah.
But and they got into stand up.
Yeah.
We have friends who are like, oh, from like 2013 to 16, I was like fully on pills or like, I didn't go to college or whatever. A lot of people have a sort of an unorthodox, where
they either went to Harvard or they dropped out of high school and they're like the smartest person you ever met.
Right.
They're like mentally ill people from different, vastly, like the poles.
Right.
There's a polarizing effect in comedy where like people come from extreme backgrounds.
Yeah. I was always jealous of like my friends where like getting, when they started featuring on the road, it was like the best thing that's ever happened to their family.
Seriously.
It's like a very like there seems to be, coming from like kind of like a very like suburban like Americana type background, like the doing stand up is so looked down upon. I felt like, do you know what I'm saying? Did it feel like weird telling your friends that coming out of college?
I think I kept it a secret for as long as I could, really.
Yeah. I felt the same way. There was no, being funny in college was cool. But trying to do it after college it felt, I had some of my best friends like actively told me not to get into it. You know what I'm saying?
It seems it's in our minds, it seems pathetic, but I think our friends thought it was. I'm sure a couple people were like, "No, you shouldn't do it," but most of your friends probably thought it was cool.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like after, like once you really are, like once they come to shows, they do think it's cool eventually, but it's like, it's so unorthodox. And I even have a couple friends who are hilarious who didn't get into it because of
because they look down
fear,
on it.
the like, hey, like, you know, this, when's it going to pay? Like my job pays or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's a very, and I think most comics have it, but I don't know why. I just feel like it's, you graduate from Wake Forest and you're like, I'm just going to do stand up as much as I can. You know,
most of my friends were pretty encouraging, but I didn't start until I had already been like working in the city for a year.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of credentials of like normal person, but also my friends were mostly encouraging. I had like artsy friends. I had like a theater friends like, yeah, you should definitely do stand up. Like was super encouraging before I even did it. And was like, you need to go to an open mic and go do this.
Right.
And then I had another friend I went to college with who was from New Canaan, Connecticut, finance guy. And he's like, you're very funny. You should monetize that. I was like, thinking about it in that way is fucking hilarious.
Of course. Yeah.
And then, I think for the most part, people were pretty encouraging, but I still was embarrassed by it. It's like, oh, fucking look at me at my little show. It's so embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing. It's weird. I think people, I think now, weirdly, people that get into it, it has a bit more of a, like there's a little bit more normalcy now because so much stuff is online.
So many more rich kids getting into comedy, like rich, like
yeah.
Why, you know, it's like it's kind of bizarre. We're like,
it's almost, people. I think a lot more people are going, well, I can do that, and I think because there's obviously not as much of a like the barrier to entry. And I've talked about this, like me and Jeff have talked about this and other comics that on the pod where it's like not many. I feel like we should have done this more on the Patreon. Like we're not really like riffing too much. We're keeping it pretty inside at this point, but not many comics have like the 2-3 year of just first 2, 3, 4, 5 years even of just getting their ass like handed
of just bombing at open mics in total obscurity.
Yeah.
So that's probably why a lot more like rich kids have gotten involved because they see the landscape and they're like, I've identified a market inefficiency where I can get in.
Yeah.
And if I develop a social media strategy and drive engagement, then I can, leverage clips to like they have a whole strategy around it. For me, and not to pat myself on the back too much, like not to make myself out to be some kind of artist or whatever, but when I first started, it was the very tail end of 2011.
Yeah.
Wait, was it 2012? No, it was 2012. It was the very tail end of 2012.
Yeah.
Like the fall of that. And then a couple months later, and I'm from Newtown, Connecticut. I went to Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Yeah.
And then like the shooting happened in December of 2012.
Was going to ask about it
eventually.
Yes.
But. And that was part of it because it was like I'd just been dipping my toe into open mics and shit. And then this like world shattering thing happens where I'm like, oh, this entire lifestyle that had been the goal for like myself and everyone else around me is like, get a good job, start a family, buy a house, white picket fence. Like all of that is meaningless at this point. Now it's like completely obliterated. What's the point in working towards all that if something that absurd can happen?
Yeah.
So it's like, why not try to fucking tell jokes for a living at that point? It's like,
What was the in terms of like how close and tight knit your town was when you heard about what went about the event? Were there families who you're like was your mom and dad going, oh yeah, like we know that family, like were dots getting connected immediately?
Yeah.
Of like, oh, like the Johnson's neighbor, that's their kid, like the Murphy's friends, like that's how quickly was that kind of starting to
within an hour. So I grew up on the same street as the shooter. He was like 500 yards down the road.
Shut up.
We went to the same bus stop for a little bit. Like his older brother was closer to me in age. So like I'd actually been to their house once or twice to like watch Dragon Ball Z with the older brother.
Wait, you hung out with the shooter or you hung out with his older brother?
His older brother, but like the shooter was like 3 years younger than me, and like the older brother was a year older than me. So like
you bullied the shooter.
I hope
you called the shooter a bitch,
and it's like,
and then
and then I was like, no way this backfires, and I like kicked off.
His whole
He was just like a little kid who was around.
Did you start his villain arc?
I was the inciting event. I did think about that for a while, and I was
no
like,
I'm just rehashing what you've talked to your therapist about. Like, you're like, I think I might have been the shooter's bully.
Lying awake at night, like, oh no. I think I'm good. I think I'm chill, dude.
So like, like when there's always. There's always a kid that like who lives close by. You go to his house and hang out like after school and stuff. So the shooter, his older brother, that was your friend for a while.
Not really. Like it was. It was more like
he wasn't cool enough.
He was not, to be honest. To be told, I don't want to dunk on the kid. I mean, I feel bad for him. He's in a fucking terrible situation. The older brother. Like where his whole his mom was killed, and then his younger brother went on a shooting rampage in elementary school. So it's like, holy fuck, that ruins your whole life.
Of course.
But he was like, I don't know, a bit of a nerd himself, and I think my mom was like, hey, can you go hang out at their house after school? I think it was like, just, the kid doesn't have a lot of friends. I feel bad, but it's like, I was more friends with like the kid who lived 2 houses down from him. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is because like shortly after the shooting, right after it happened, my parents still lived in that house, and my dad was home, and like SWAT vehicles went down the street, and all these cop cars went flying down the street.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy shit, the shooter probably lived on our street. And doing the math, like they were leaking out information where it was like gunman identified as, first they initially reported it was the older brother. So he was like 24 at the time. So it said, okay, 24-year-old.
That's a brutal day.
Brutal day. He got put in a squad car in like Jersey.
You find out your brother does it, obviously, but right before that, you're like, people think you killed. Was it 30 people?
It was 26. Or 27 total, including his mom. But it was like,
man.
Yeah, and, it was a rough one.
So they. I'm trying to. So the families immediately. Your parents are texting you or calling you, being like, "It was the." Can we say their last names? I don't know the.
It was the Lanzas.
So they're like, oh yeah, they're like, it's whatever. It's what's the kid, the killer's name?
Adam.
They're like, it's Adam Lanz, and you're like,
I think we were kind of piecing it together. I found a TV like in the break room. I was like, not going to be
like
getting any.
I think everyone has their like. The weird kid down the street that they hung out with once or twice.
Yeah.
Who was more or less harmless, but just a weirdo.
Yeah.
And you're just out of college, just being like, no fucking way.
Yeah, it was
You
insane.
are so close you're close enough to that family, you could shoot the older brother a text, be like, checking in on you.
Yeah.
In theory.
I didn't have his number, but yeah, there was
you guys really. So even like in like the like high school graduation, I feel like everyone comes together in some capacity.
Right.
You were still like, I'm not talking.
It was just off the radar. I don't know.
It was
maybe if I were a better hang, this whole crisis would have been averted. If I had better social skills in like middle school.
It's obviously it's like rocked your town, even like obviously yearly or whatever. Was there I'm trying in terms of like the fallout from that, do you like, did you go home and like kind of just to kind of rally around the community and everything like that? What was how did the community respond?
Went home that day. It was just like, I was just kind of in a state of low shock at work. And I was like, I'm not getting anything done today. I'm going to go home, try to be with my family.
Yeah.
And I did. And I went and I took the train up. My mom picked me up from the train. She's like, you're not going to believe the shit that's going on. And drives me home. Our street. So they had like police taped off like the lower section of the street, like where the shooter's house was.
Yeah.
Like at that intersection, they had closed it off. So all the news vans, had to be 40 of them, were lined up on the street right in front of our house. So they stretched like a quarter mile back up to the top of the hill. And they were like directly right in front of us. Like we heard their generators going all night. Like you'd see a reporter in the spotlight, like down the street, like in full view. Like the reporters were knocking on our door.
They're trying to ask you guys like what you know about the family.
Dude, Chris Hansen, the Dateline guy, like the To Catch a Predator guy.
Yeah.
Came into our house and talked to my dad on camera.
Oh, so your dad was like, I'm ready to talk.
Yeah,
your dad's like,
they were talking to the press and like, you know, they didn't have much to say, I don't think, but like that clip was going around, and then I wound up
a soundbite of you just being like, honestly, the whole family not great hangs.
Just we really want to take this time to shit on our neighbors and to just say we weren't really cool with them like that. We want to distance ourselves as much as possible.
We already know he's a murderer, but on top of that, like you can't watch a movie with the guy.
And I'm on camera just like, and the snacks they had in their house were not good. It was low fat popcorn. Who does that?
No Dunkaroos.
No
taquitos.
Knockoff Oreos.
Yeah.
But yeah, I talked to the press. Like there was a whole huddle of reporters in front of our front door the next day.
Wow.
And like eventually they just kept pressing and pressing and pressing. And then eventually we were like, throw them a bone. And
because they were always just like, hey, what's going? Yeah. Did it get leaked? Did they somehow find out that you knew, or were they just knocking on everybody's door?
I think they like talked to my mom. They like caught her in the driveway or something, and she had said like, "Oh yeah, my son knew them, whatever." And then
that'll happen. Yeah.
And then there were like 10 reporters like on our stoop.
Dude, yeah, moms love getting asked questions. Though. Moms love to be like when someone bothers them.
Moms do not hold up under interrogation.
Dads don't like to be bothered.
Yeah.
You can bother a mom pretty much all day long. You can go up to a mom and just ask her anything, and she'll be like, "Oh my God, hello."
Moms will respond to people who are like handing out flyers in front of the grocery store. They'll answer whatever questions you got.
Yeah. And dude, it's crazy that they. So then, how long did you stay in town? Like
through the weekend, and then I went back to the city on Monday to go to work.
And then you just God damn, dude.
Yeah.
And so then you're just did you go back at all for anything? Was it like, were your parents being like, hey, they're doing a, I'm trying to think out of like a vigil type situation?
Well, there was something that night. There was like the night of the shooting, the big Catholic church in town, St. Rose, was like where everyone gathered, and it was like the entire church was full and beyond, like out into the parking lot.
You know, so you have a firsthand experience of like, you are and again, I want to get into this, but it's like, oh shit, we gotta
please.
You know, we'll roll into the Patreon in a second. We're gonna get more into this, but like, I want to talk like the mentality that you have as a like, you're a professional joke writer in the sense like you've written for award shows, you've written for Comedy Central stuff. And you know, obviously your Twitter's hilarious. So it's like,
wouldn't it be psychotic right now if I was just like, and you know what? I responded to the tragedy with the greatest page of monologue jokes anyone's ever seen.
I was gonna say, well, that's honestly what I was gonna say is like, you're one of the few people, you're one of the few actual joke writers, great joke writers that you've been.
I have wing sauce all over my face, but thank you so much.
As a joke, yeah, but it's like you've been. Your first thought, tragedies happen, maybe real tragedies happen half a dozen times a year. And like your first thought as a joke writer is to write as many and as good of tweets, whatever or stand-up jokes that you can sometimes, because that's what comics do. You grew up 3 houses down from the killer. And when those tweets are rolling in about this guy and about your town, how are you responding to that? How do you? What's your take? Like, what's your viewpoint on comedy in that moment in time?
It was interesting because that was one of the first like major disaster type events where Twitter was really ubiquitous. Like Twitter had gone to another level around that time. Where it was like, now it's really everywhere, and it's part of and like everyone in real time is like getting their shit off. But
making the darkest jokes.
Yeah. And I will say it is different when it's your thing.
That's what I was kind of driving at. Yeah.
Because like intellectually, comics were always like, yeah, you joke about anything. It's never too soon. It's never too harsh, whatever. And it's like, I think you do. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you do strike a balance where it's like have some fucking empathy as a human being, but you can still,
sure.
You can still, I don't know, write a joke about something really dark, whatever. But it was like, there was like the immediacy of the moment where I was like pissed. I remember going to open mics like the week after or 2 weeks after, where like I think I heard a couple comics say some, whatever offensive joke.
Yeah.
And I was just pissed. Like I wanted to fight somebody, but
of course, yeah. Because they're saying like, they're kind of saying shit about the town or whatever, or and you're just, even as like a comic, you're like, dude.
But even then, for the most part, like even most comics were like, holy shit. Like I remember talking to Tom Takar and he years later, and he was like, yeah, I had to go home that day. And he lived in Indiana. It was
it was, I remember, my only point of reference for anything like this was there was a shooting during a 4th of July parade or something. Yeah, I think
in Chicago, right?
Yeah,
I remember
in
that.
Chicago, like right outside Chicago. It's in Deerfield.
Yeah.
The only reason why like this had, and again, like it was that enough is a bit shocking. My friend's mom got shot in the ankle.
Holy shit.
Like her ankle fully got like just blown off.
Oh my God.
Or not blown off. I think her foot's fine, but it was like
it was somewhere in between rolling your ankle and foot blown off by a limb.
but getting that text from like my friend just being like, oh dude, like Mikey Gutman's mom got like shot, and you're like,
that's insane.
And then the second text is like in the ankle, and you're like, okay, well, but still, it's
all
like,
right, fair game.
But still, it's like, but again, even in that times, like there are people like tweeting this, like people are making light. People are always finding ways. Comics are always finding ways to make light of shit like that. And even then, I was like, in a situation like this, I was like, okay, well, this fucking. Let's stop the jokes.
It kind of cut through some bullshit ideas where, like you hear comics be like, they tweet an offensive joke about some tragedy, and then they try to cover it up like, well, this is actually how I cope. Because I'm feeling so sad. I had to, it's like, that's not fucking true.
Right.
Let's just be honest about that. If you want to like make dark jokes to make light of things, great.
Yeah.
But don't act like you're expressing your sorrow by, making a joke about that.
100%. I agree. Yeah. It's your perspective on that is it's so unique. And yeah, I guess it was something where most people had, if you didn't have a little bit of sympathy, you're pretty much a bad person.
Yeah. So it was like 1 in 5 comics. It was like the 20% of comics who are complete sociopaths.
Yes, 100%. We do have to roll into the Patreon. I want to get into
this pod ain't all free, baby.
It ain't. I want to get into you writing for the award shows and like the roast battle circuit.
Hell yeah!
I think that stuff is so. I'm really interested in that stuff because like what were the shows again? It was the Golden Globes twice, right?
Just this once, this past year, and then last year the Tom Brady roast and a couple other roasts.
We will talk. We'll get into them again. We'll do some plugs. Where can people find you?
McDade Baby on Instagram, JP McDade Comedy on YouTube. Check me out. Just give me a follow. I love you.
Follow the guy, folks. He's one of the best in the game. We're gonna roll into the Patreon, and I also want to. I want to start it's a new segment I'm gonna called Hex Your Ex. Someone wrote into me just shitting on her ex-boyfriend, and I'm just gonna read it. And I think it's if you want to put some bad energy out there and shit on your ex, we'll get into it.
If you want two comedians riding with one side of a story, we got you, dude. We're gonna fully take your side with no other information.
You've been an idiot for listening, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Good night and good luck.